Good evening, Alchemy. This is Deep, and I am bringing you a little tutorial. Now, a lot of people I've noticed on the server who are fairly new to Feed the Beast don't really know all the options available to them on how to power EU style power. So I'm going to explain a few of them to you today. As you can see, I'm prepared. But let's start off basic. The generator. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody knows what this is, but I better cover it anyway. The generator is the most basic way of making EU power. The interface is similar to a furnace, in which you put the fuel in the bottom slot, and this black slot next to that shows if there is power in the generator itself. The top slot is there if you want to charge, say, a battery or your mining drill, for instance. And this takes any basic Minecraft fuel, as well as coal coke made in coke ovens. Show here as an example. It shows it burning, but nothing's happening. That's because I have it linked up to a bat box. And as you can see, it is powering this fairly quickly at low voltage. How you make this, and I will pause the video if you wish to see these, is an RA battery, a machine block and the basic furnace, or the one I prefer, an iron furnace, an RA battery and 3 refined iron. This is only preferable to me because it is slightly cheaper, as you don't have to cook some of the iron twice. Moving on, the geothermal generator. Now this bad boy, as many of you will also know, runs off, yep, you guessed it, lava. Now, all these types here can be used within it. Cells will be consumed, so you will not get the cell back, but you will get the bucket back. Same as the other, you place the bucket in and the generator turns on. Power is producing is going to the bat box as before. How you make this is fairly simple. It is the generator that I showed you previously, 2 refined iron, 4 glass blocks and 2 empty cells, which are just 4 tin to create. And you can pump into this lava from a pump with Buildcraft pipes or red power tubes. Now, what a lot of people work towards, and has been made a bit harder by GregTech, are the solar panels. There are 4 different types of solar panel, but the 2 that most people deal with, excuse me one second, the 2 that most people deal with are the basic and the advanced. The basic simply powers when the sun is on. You can put items in here to charge, and I've had this here a while, so it has actually filled the bat box. But as you can see, it charges fairly quickly. That is not as quick as the advanced solar panel, which has an internal storage, which is a big advantage over its previous, and charges, as you can see, much faster. Filling that in a matter of minutes, really. And this has 4 slots for you to put items in to charge. This will also output 8 EU per tick in the day and 1 EU per tick at night. It's worth noting that this will only produce 1 EU a tick in the Twilight Forest, so isn't really useful there. How you make this, a basic solar panel, is a generator, 2 electronic circuits, 2 silicon plates made in a blast furnace, advanced blast furnace, a carbon plate and 3 glass panes. The advanced is this previous solar panel recipe, and all of these goodies. I shan't list absolutely everything because everyone can use the NEI inside the game itself, but I will hover over them for you to pause if required. Now the 2 higher levels are medium voltage and high voltage, so if you place anything lesser than medium voltage on the hybrid or high voltage on the ultimate, it will explode. This is also full. I should have really emptied these before I did this. Hybrid solar panel is pretty much exactly the same as the advanced, but with much more internal storage and much faster gathering of power. And I will grab this because I know this will be full. The ultimate, much more internal storage, as you can see, and even faster. Here are the recipes. And for the ultimate, there are in fact 2 recipes. This incredibly expensive one, or this slightly less expensive one. Now these I will not be getting into how to use on this particular video, as I'm not entirely proficient with these myself yet. But this is a nuclear reactor and a reactor chamber. Now note, when I click the reactor chamber I still get the nuclear reactor. That is because it is connected next to it. A basic nuclear reactor has 3 rows, and for each reactor chamber you place beside it, you gain an extra row. This is a lot more complicated to use, and I will leave it for somebody else to explain, or myself if I ever figure it out. These are the recipes for the reactor and the reactor chamber. Now the other 2 types of effectively infinite power that do not require you to put fuel in them, and that is of course the windmill, which I have all the way up there, which has this interface here, 1 slot for charging. Now how well this particular item does is based on how high it is in the air and if there are any obstructions, plus an element of luck as to wind strength, how it's calculated in Minecraft. You can see just one of these is incredibly slow. Unbelievably slow. This is one of the first things I built when I was setting up this entire area, in fact. But it has 2 recipes. 1 cheap generator and 4 carbon plates, and 1 more advanced generator and 2 magnesium plate for 1 wind turbine. Now watch this. This I have made for you as a visual representation. Each of these glass blocks is an area that the wind turbine itself checks to see if there are any obstructions. For each obstruction that is in place, the wind turbine will perform worse. It won't perform not at all unless you do as I have done here and filled each and every slot, but it is 2 blocks below, 4 blocks above and 4 blocks to each side of the wind turbine. If there is nothing in those areas, the wind turbine will perform to its highest capability for the wind strength in the area. And as you can see, just to prove it, absolutely nothing. due to each and every block being obstructed. And the water mills. Now the recipe for water mills gives you 2, and is a generator and 4 aluminium ingots. Now, not this aluminium I'm holding now, not this. This is what you mine out of the ground. These you have to use more advanced machinery to get. But nevertheless, I usually set them up like this with a bat box in the centre. Obviously that's doing nothing with no water. You can actually put buckets of water in them and water cells, which will make them perform admirably, but that doesn't last very long. This is how I usually like to set up my water mills, though usually underground, noting that each 4 water mills has a battery box in the centre, and for 4 water mills it's an average amount of power going in there, which is feeding out. My top box is full there, but if I were to place that, you'll see this is about how fast my setup is pumping power, which is okay for most applications, but as you can see, that is actually 8 mils. Now the way I've done this is with water on each and every side of the mill. So I've actually placed water source blocks on top of each of these by shift right clicking, and the same for these, so that water is all the way around them and also beneath. Now finally, and I'm not going to go into these too heavily, these are the other ways of creating EU power that I know of in the mod. There is much more advanced GregTech ways of doing it, but most people will never see these, never use them. So I'm going to go into these basic ones here. First up, the diesel generator. This is a EU generator which runs off all these here. Biofuel cells, coal fuel cells, biofuel bucket, diesel cell, nitro coal fuel cell, fuel bucket, and nitro diesel cell. And I have these, you note in the text when I hover over, the quantities they work at in the diesel generator. If I was to take one of these, say the best one, place it in, it's instantaneous, liquid amount, and it will produce 12 EU per tick. The gas turbine, which I have used myself, runs off hydrogen cells and methane cells. This is the hydrogen cells produce 15k EU at 16 EU a tick, and these produce 45k EU at 16 EU per tick. And similarly, if I place that in there in the same manner, it instantly uses the can, you get the cell back, and this will now produce power. As you can see, they do in fact. Then there's the thermal generator, which is the GregTech version of the geothermal generator I have over there, but is actually much better. This uses, lava, just like the geothermal generator. But it's worth noting that with this one, unlike the other, you do in fact get the cell back if you do use a cell. And it lights up nice and prettily. As you can see, that's working fine. Then there is the semi-fluid generator. Now, this is fairly expensive to make, but it uses all of these. So you can actually use that massive quantity of creosote oil your coke ovens produce to generate EU energy. And just to prove that, semi-fluid generator, same as the others, instantly uses the can, you get the can back. I am noting I got a different type of can back, that's really quite odd, but regardless, that should now produce power. And there we go. Now these two, I honestly don't see anyone ever using, but I thought I'd mention them anyway. The magic energy absorber and the magic energy converter. Now this one I can't figure out how to get working, but apparently you should be able to take enchanted tools and weapons and it will literally turn the enchantments into EU energy, although as you can see I can't seem to get that to do that. So moving on, the magic energy converter. This works just like the other converters down the line, except you can use these as fuel. Now why anyone would use a Nether Star as fuel I don't know, but there you go. As you can see, it's in there. And it's all nicely lit up blue. And it's powering very, very quickly. Now these two are not GregTech. I believe at least this one is definitely forestry, I'm not sure about this one. But the petroleum generator and the bio generator. Petroleum generator takes oil buckets and fuel buckets, and the bio generator takes biomass buckets and biofuel buckets. Simple interface. You can pump into these with pipes, and the same interface there pretty much, except this is why I'm not so sure they are from the same mod, despite it seeming that way. And as you can see, they both work fairly well to create power. Now that's me wrapping up. I hope that was helpful to you all. Goodbye.